I wake before dawn, the familiar ache already settling in my shoulders, a dull throb that seems to have taken up permanent residence these past few years. My tiny flat in London is never truly dark, the city's glow seeping through the thin curtains, painting the walls a murky orange. I am Thomas, 31 years old, and most days I feel like I am 31 going on 70. My alarm, a cheap digital clock, blares its tinny tune and I silence it quickly, not wanting to disturb Mrs. Henderson who lives through the paper-thin wall. Her coughs are bad enough as it is. I slide out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and begin my day. My first job is at the market, setting up a stall for a baker before the sun properly rises. The air is always sharp and cold then, smelling of damp concrete and possibility, though the possibility often feels out of reach for me. I work hard every single day. I haul heavy crates, arrange pastries, make small talk with the early risers. My hands are rough, my back often protests, but I keep going. It is what my father taught me, to keep going no matter what. He passed away 5 years ago, far too young, leaving me and my mother with a quiet house and a stack of mounting bills. My mother, bless her heart, tries to be strong, but her own health has been failing, adding another layer to the weight I carry. Our small family home, the one my father worked so hard to buy, is now in jeopardy. Mortgage payments have become a monstrous mountain I cannot seem to climb, and every letter from the bank feels like a stone thrown at my heart. I often lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the internal nemesis of doubt whispering in my ear. You're failing, Thomas. You're not strong enough. You're letting them down. It's a battle I fight every morning, pushing the fear away with the first sip of lukewarm tea. I want to honor my father's memory, to keep our home, to take care of my mother. But the world feels so big and I feel so small. I try everything to make things better. After my market shift, I cycle across town to a warehouse where I stack boxes until late afternoon. Sometimes I even pick up evening shifts cleaning offices. I eat cheap, sleep little, and pour every spare penny into the house fund. My hands bleed from cardboard cuts, my eyes sting from lack of sleep, but the balance in our bank account barely moves. It feels like I am running on a treadmill, full speed ahead, but staying in the exact same spot. A few months ago, I thought I had a plan. I had some old tools of my father's, good quality, and I decided to sell them to get a lump sum. They were his pride and joy, but the house needed saving more than I needed sentimental keepsakes. I arranged to meet a buyer, someone who seemed genuine, for a good price. The day before the sale, I went into the dusty old shed at the back of our house, the one that still smelled faintly of sawdust and my father's pipe tobacco. My throat tightened as I picked up his old toolbox. It was heavy, worn, smooth from years of use. As I carefully took out each wrench and hammer, preparing them for their new owner, I noticed a small wooden box tucked away at the very bottom, beneath a layer of old rags. I had never seen it before. It was plain, unvarnished, and surprisingly light. I opened it, my fingers trembling slightly. Inside, there was no treasure, no money, just a single yellowed envelope. It was addressed in my father's neat, familiar handwriting to a name I didn't recognize, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, and below her name, a faint address for a place called Rosewood Community Centre. The letter itself was decades old, the paper fragile to the touch. It was a thank-you note from my father to Mrs. Vance. It spoke of profound gratitude, not for a favor done for him, but for a chance he was given, for an opportunity to help others. He wrote about how helping her and the community she represented had brought him a joy he never knew he needed, how their acceptance had filled a void. It was a letter I never knew existed, a hidden piece of my father's life. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Confusion, a strange pride, and an overwhelming sadness for the father I thought I knew everything about. Just as I folded the letter back into its envelope, my phone buzzed. It was the tool buyer. He canceled. His circumstances had changed, he said. Just like that, my plan, my small beacon of hope, vanished. I stood there in the dusty shed, the letter in my hand, feeling the walls closing in. The house, my mother, my own crushing exhaustion. I was at my lowest point. The letter, instead of offering comfort, only intensified the feeling of despair. It was a reminder of a life my father had, a life of purpose and connection, while I felt utterly alone, losing everything he had built. I slumped against the workbench, tears finally welling in my eyes. I felt like giving up. For days, the letter haunted me. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, Rosewood Community Centre. The words swirled in my head, a whisper in the storm of my troubles. I looked it up online, a small, independent community hub in a quieter part of outer London, a place I had never heard of. What did my father do there? Why did he feel such gratitude for helping them? And why had he never sent the letter? The question gnawed at me. The house situation continued to worsen. The bank sent a final notice. My mother's cough deepened. I had nothing left to lose. Driven by a desperate need for answers, a flicker of curiosity, and perhaps a desperate hope that understanding my father might somehow guide me, I made a decision. I took the last of my savings, enough for a train ticket and a single day trip, and set out for Rosewood. The journey was long, taking me through parts of London I had never seen, until the urban sprawl gave way to greener spaces, and then a small, slightly run-down high street. The Rosewood Community Centre was modest, an old brick building with colorful murals painted on its side, a small garden bursting with unexpected flowers. My heart pounded as I pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, it was bustling, filled with the gentle hum of activity. Elderly people sat chatting over tea, children laughed in a nearby room, and a group of volunteers sorted through donations. I felt like an intruder, out of place and out of time. I approached a woman behind a small reception desk, a kind-faced lady with sparkling eyes and a warm smile. "Excuse me," I began, my voice a little shaky. "I'm looking for a Mrs. Eleanor Vance. My name is Thomas, and my father was Robert." The woman's eyes widened instantly. She gasped, a small hand flying to her mouth. Robert Davies?" she asked, her voice filled with a tremor of emotion. "Goodness gracious, is that truly you, dear boy? You're the spitting image of him." Before I could explain, she was on her feet, calling out across the room, "Everyone, it's Robert's son. Robert's boy is here." Suddenly, the whole room seemed to stop. Faces turned towards me, old eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and profound recognition. A moment later, I was surrounded. The kind woman who introduced herself as Margaret, a long-time volunteer, gently explained that Mrs. Vance had passed away a few years prior, but that everyone here remembered Robert. And then they began to tell me stories. Decades ago, the Rosewood Community Centre was on the verge of collapse. A vital support system for the elderly and isolated, its roof was caving in, its heating system broken, and funds were non-existent. They were desperate. My father, a skilled carpenter, heard about their plight through a friend. He was struggling financially himself back then, just starting out, but he arrived one day, unannounced, with his tools and a quiet determination. He worked tirelessly for weeks, repairing the roof, mending broken furniture, even installing a more efficient heating system using salvaged parts he found. He never asked for a penny, refusing any payment beyond a warm meal and a cup of tea. He said he was simply grateful for the chance to help for the purpose it gave him. He poured his heart into that building, and in doing so, he saved it. Mrs. Vance, they explained, was the director then, and she had become a dear friend to him. The letter I held in my hand, they said, was probably a draft he never sent, a way for him to express his profound thanks to her and them for letting him make a difference, for giving him a place where his skills mattered. As they spoke, I felt a warmth spread through me, a feeling of connection to my father I hadn't felt since he was alive. They then asked me what brought me here today, and hesitantly I told them about my mother's health, about the house, about my own despair. Without a moment's hesitation, a chorus of voices rose. "Robert saved us," an old man with twinkling eyes declared. "Now we'll save his son." That day, the Rosewood community rallied around me. They started a collection, pooling their meager pensions and small savings. Several people offered to use their own expertise to help my mother, from a retired nurse offering guidance to a builder friend of theirs who offered to inspect our house for any necessary repairs that could be done cheaply. The current director of the center offered me a part-time job, using my skills for maintenance and carpentry, just like my father had done. It was an act of unexpected kindness, so overwhelming, so profound, it brought me to my knees. I wept there in the heart of that community center, tears of relief and gratitude. With the help of the Rosewood community, the dark clouds began to lift. The funds they raised, combined with my new steady income at the center, allowed me to catch up on the mortgage payments and negotiate a better plan with the bank. The builder from Rosewood, a kind man named Arthur, came to our house and identified crucial repairs that were much simpler and cheaper than I had imagined, fixing them with the help of other volunteers from the center. My mother's health slowly improved, knowing the worry about our home was gone, and she loved hearing stories about my father from his Rosewood friends. I embraced my new role at the center with a passion I hadn't felt in years. I fixed creaky doors, mended broken chairs, and helped organize community events. I found immense joy in making a difference, just as my father had. The laughter of the children, the grateful smiles of the elderly, the camaraderie of my fellow volunteers, it filled the void that doubt and despair had created. I wasn't just working, I was belonging. I was building a life not just for myself, but with and for others. The house, once a source of crushing anxiety, became a haven once more. My mother, healthier and happier, now often visited the Rosewood Center with me, enjoying the company and sharing her own stories of my father. One quiet afternoon, as I was sweeping out my father's old shed, preparing to finally use it for my own projects at the center, a small, loose floorboard caught my eye. Beneath it, tucked away, was another envelope smaller than the first. Inside, there was no letter, but a single, carefully folded piece of paper. On it, in my father's distinctive hand, was written a simple quote: "Kindness is a seed. Plant it, and it will bloom into a forest of hope." And then beneath it, a short personal note. "Always remember to look for the light, Thomas, even in the darkest corners. It's always there, waiting to be found or waiting to be made." I stood there, holding that paper, a profound sense of peace settling over me. My father's quiet, selfless act, hidden for decades, had not only saved the Rosewood Community Centre, but it had ultimately saved me too. The kindness he had sown had indeed bloomed, not just into a forest of hope, but into a home, a community, and a purpose for his son. He hadn't just provided for me when he was alive. He had left me a legacy of connection that continues to light my path, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are not found in gold, but in the echoes of a good deed.